In this session, we are going to look at the overview of the English grammar. So when it comes to learning a language, there are three main tasks: the words, the grammar, and the usage pattern. So let's compare the words and grammar. So when it comes to learning words, it's a bigger task compared to learning grammar. But there's advantage because we can always play games with words. So we can survive with whatever the words we know. But when it comes to grammar, though it is the smaller task, we can't play games with grammar. And also it's very important for your confidence as well. So that is why we want to study grammar or sort of a master grammar and finish it as much as possible. So let's look at the overview of the English grammar. So we are looking at the overview of the English grammar for two reasons. The first one is we must know the big picture before digging into the individual topics. The second reason is we want to understand that the English grammar is very small. There are only small number of rules are there. So therefore we must be able to study it and finish it. So what are the basic parts of English grammar? So we have the nouns, verbs, auxiliary verbs, tenses and voices, adjectives, adverbs, articles, prepositions, conjunctions, reported speech and phrases and clauses. So there are a few more topics, but these are the more prominent topics. So let's look at the overview of each and every topic. So before moving to any specific topic, we want to first look at the anatomy of a simple sentence in English. So the simplest possible sentence in English has at least two parts. Those are the subject and the verb. So when it comes to the next level, you can introduce the object as well. So then you have the subject, verb and object. For example, Kevin plays the guitar. I love you. So those are the subject, verb, object sentences. Whereas the dog barks is a subject plus verb, the simplest possible sentence. And of course, the more and more sentence patterns you can build, but you have to start with the simplest. And one of the important points we want to highlight here that when it comes to subject and verb, the subject is a noun. When it comes to subject, verb and object, again, both subject and object is a noun. We focus on nouns because grammatical rules related to both subject and object are there. So let's start with nouns. So what are the grammar related things we must know about nouns? Of course, we are going to take it as a separate session later, but let's look at the big picture. So there are special type of nouns called pronouns, and we can use those pronouns as a subject, object, possessive form, reflexive form, and there's a separation called the first person, second person, and the third person. And then we can do another classification called proper nouns and common nouns. Especially when it comes to writing, there are some rules, capitalization rules when it comes to proper nouns. And another classification is countable versus uncountable. So there are some grammar rules. For example, the countable nouns have the plural form, whereas uncountable nouns have just a single form. And also when it comes to forming the plural, there are some set of rules. And there are collective nouns. So we consider it as a singular, though it's a collection. And also there are different ways we can make nouns as well, other than those native nouns. So we can make nouns from adjectives like kindness. We can make nouns from verbs. So we call them gerunds like playing, smoking. So we will be covering those aspects when we are covering the noun sections. So let's look at the second part, the verbs. So even the simplest possible sentence must be having a verb. So when it comes to verb, what are the grammatical rules that we have to concentrate on? So verbs have three forms: the simple form, the past form, and the past participle form. And we must know what are the usages of those forms and how to form the past and past participle of a verb. So there are some rules, there are some patterns. There's something called regular verbs and irregular verbs. And even in the irregular verbs, there are patterns. So there are some verbs like x, 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 cut, cut, cut. But there are some verbs like x, y, z, drink, drank, drunk. And there are even situations where x, y, x, come, came, come. So in that irregularity also, there are some patterns we want to look at so that we have a better understanding about those. And also there's another grammar rule related to verb. When we use the verbs in the simple present tense, third person, we have to suffix s. So we have to look at, we have to understand that these are small rules that we have to abide by. So let's look at the most important concept in English grammar, the tenses. So there are three categories in tenses in English, and each category can be subdivided into four subtenses, and it's very systematic. The simple, continuous, perfect, and perfect continuous. So we must know how to form a sentence in a particular tense, or we must be able to transform a particular sentence into all 12 tenses. And also we must know what are the usages. What are the usages of simple present tense? In which kind of a situation we use the present continuous tense, the simple future tense, the future perfect tense. So those are the things that we have to cover under tenses. So the next most important thing is the voices. So there are two voices in English language. We call them the active voice and the passive voice. So active voice is used when the subject is prominent, whereas passive voice is used when we are more focusing on the object. And again, we must understand how to form a passive voice sentence and in which kind of situations we use passive voice. So then we have the adjectives. So adjectives are used to qualify a noun. And again, we have to identify the usage patterns. So we can use adjectives before a noun, or we can use adjectives with a be verb, and there are few more patterns as well. And also, adjectives have three forms: the base or the positive form, the comparative form, and the superlative form. So we must know when to use these different forms, how to make those comparative and superlative forms. So then we have the adverbs. So adverbs are used to qualify a verb, adjective, or another adverb. So again, there are usage patterns. And also there are different ways of making adverbs. Some adverbs are created from other words. For example, slow becomes slowly. It's adverb created from adjective. And there are some adverbs of its own, like fast. So the next part of grammar is, and a very interesting one, the articles. So it's very confusing topic to someone who is new to the English language. But once you understand it, once you categorize it, once you see the patterns, once you see the relationships, it's very easy. So first of all, we can subdivide it into indefinite articles and definite articles. The word the is the definite article in English. Indefinite articles we can subdivide into again singular and plural. So a or an is the singular indefinite article, whereas there are a set of indefinite plural articles like some, any, little, less. So we must know when to use when to use the, when to use little, and when to use less. So we will be discussing those things under articles. And the next important topic is the conjunctions. So we use conjunctions to combine two sentences or two clauses. So we can categorize them. We can see some patterns. So there are conjunctions which can replace one with the other. And there are some conjunctions which is opposite of the other one. And there are some conjunctions we have to use at the beginning of the sentence, whereas some others we use at the middle. So likewise, we can classify them. We can see the similarities, dissimilarities. So then we have the prepositions. So prepositions are used to combine words to make it more meaningful. Top of the table, inside the room, from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. So those are prepositions. So we use prepositions, or we can categorize prepositions into two main categories: prepositions related to time and prepositions related to places. there are some prepositions we use in both the categories. For example, when we say on, we can use it as a preposition of time. The class is on Monday, and also we can use it as a preposition of place. The pen is on the table. So we are going to discuss those interesting points when we are discussing the prepositions. And there's another important topic called reported speech. So we not only convey our ideas with another person. Sometimes we have to report something someone else has told you. In English language, there are two ways you can report: the direct speech and the indirect speech. So we use indirect speech heavily because it's very natural. But there are situations if we want to emphasize the exact words, we use the direct speech. And there are small rules: changing of the pronouns, the changing of the time related things, the tenses, etc. So we must know those things under the category of reported speech. And finally, there are phrases and clauses which help us building more complicated sentences. We need more complicated sentences to convey more complicated ideas. And again, we can understand some common patterns and classify them into different categories, so that when we know those classifications unconsciously, they are going to help us building more complicated sentences. Right, so those are the basic areas in English grammar. So we will be digging to each and every topic one by one with reasonable depth, so that we can build our confidence on grammar. So if you feel like this session is interesting, make sure you like it, so that more and more people will reach this particular session. And also, if you feel like this is really useful, make sure that you subscribe, so that you will be notified when more and more sessions are uploaded. Thank you.